Welcome to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger. Badass Direct Sales Mastery is a podcast for rock star direct sales moms who are determined to make their business kick ass. Jenny will share her knowledge of effective sales and recruiting techniques, tips to get what you want from your business, and will interview direct sales professionals and leaders from various companies. The interviews will give insight to how these rock stars got to where they are and where they plan to grow in the future. And now, the direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger.
Welcome back to another episode of Badass Direct Sales Mastery. I'm your host, your direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger, helping you whip your business into shape. And today I have with me Chequita McCullough. Now, she and I met, I don't even remember where, but we had a great conversation. And I was like, I need to have you on the show because we need to discuss this. This is something I don't think I've ever covered before. And I think there are probably people in my audience who could really benefit from hearing from you, Chequita. And she said, all right, let's do this. So let me tell you about Chequita. Chequita is a transformational relationship coach who works with women leaders to rebuild healthy, loving relationships with their mothers. She has supported many women to overcome the impacts of self-doubt, insecurity, and fear tied to their beliefs about their self-esteem, work life, and other relationships stemming from their relationships with their mothers. She is committed to a relentless pursuit of leading women to become empowered and reach their highest potential, using their voices to change their personal environments. Her work helps women become authentic and gain empowerment to build healthy mother-daughter relationships. She's a corporate leader and trainer, speaker, adjunct professor, professional mentor, and transformational coach. Welcome to the show, Chequita.
Well, hello. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. And we get to add a new moniker after this week, and that is author.
Got a and I know at some point, maybe just maybe a podcast I hear, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yes. Lots of things in the works. Lots of things. And I'm excited about the podcast. It's not coming anytime soon, but hopefully in the beginning of the year, I'll launch that baby and get on the airwaves just like you, Jenny.
Oh, I love that for you. And I really think that this is something that is needed in this world, which is why I wanted to bring you on here. So how did you get into the world of, because this is a very unique coaching and mentoring niche, which is the mother-daughter relationship. How did you get into this part of the world?
Well, besides it being my own walk, right? We learn our biggest lessons from our own relationships and our own, sphere that we're in. But I was coaching women and I saw a common thread that always came up when I asked the question, so how's your relationship with your mother? Then there came this long list of challenges and complexities to it. And in particular, one client I was working with, she asked if I could specifically work with her on her mother-daughter relationship. And I knew her personally, and she wanted to have a spiritual element into it. And I said, I'll find you a resource that helps support where you're going. So I Googled and searched Amazon, and there was not a single book written from a biblical perspective on how to restore the mother-daughter relationship. So she made a joke and she said, I think that's the book you're going to write. And I laughed hysterically and said, no, not me. I've already settled it, reconciled it, and I'm good. And so 2 years, that was about 5 years ago. So 2 years ago, I took on the challenge to write a book, a biblical-based book on how to restore the mother-daughter relationship, which turned out to be such a great experience. I got some more healing. My mom and I got closer, and I just created this body of work that I'm super proud of, that I'm hoping the world embraces and more mothers and daughters get to a better, loving, healthy relationship as a result.
Oh, I think that is really fantastic because, and that's something I'm actually working with my kids on, which is we're doing an entrepreneurial unit in their homeschooling right now. And one of the things we're talking about is what are the holes in the market? Why is it that you want to create that business, right? So they're doing the research on that. So I love that you're like, yes, there are books out there on the mother-daughter relationship, but not from the biblical perspective. So let's dig into that. Why that part? What is the connection there for you on that for wanting to have that very specific connection between the mother-daughter relationship and a biblical perspective?
Well, my life is built on biblical principles. And so, as an adjunct professor, I studied, and have a degree in leadership and ministry. And so I love studying and trying to understand, what was God's original intention? So when I took that, when I looked for the resource and I said, what was God's original intention for the mothers and then mothers and daughter in relationship, I really dug in and started trying to find out what that looked like from a biblical perspective. And then from there, I created a framework that helps you understand the role of a mother and daughter and how significant they actually, when they can work together, how significantly they can change the dynamics of their family and empower their family to, tremendous success. And so if there isn't a resource out there, then sometimes we have to step into the lane to give the resource that's needed. So that's how I stepped into it.
Oh, well, it makes perfect sense though, right? Because I think every one of us in business felt that call, right? Which is why it's so funny that your client was like, and that's the book you're going to write.
I was like, I don't think so. No, thank you. I'll pass on that.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that because I don't know that I've had this conversation with you, but I think I've probably shared it on the show before, which is when I was doing my vision board at the end of 2019 for 2020, one of the things that came up for me as I was like sitting there going, okay, what am I going to do in 2020? There was this little voice in the back of my head that said, you're going to write a book. And I went, no, I'm not. Sit down, shut up, go back to the corner. And then I had some other ideas come up and then it popped up again. And I went, you're going to write a book in 2020. I went, no, I'm going to write. Like, had zero interest in writing a book. I don't know where this was coming from. I'm like, no, sit down, shut up, go back to the corner. When it came up a third time, I said, fine. I stuck it on the vision board. And then I ended up writing a chapter in a book. So I didn't write a whole book, but I got a chapter in a book, right? So I think that's interesting. So you mentioned that getting into this particular arena started with your own story, and I'm sure you probably addressed this in your book that's about to come out. But can you give us a little peek into how this became your thing, your story? What made you talk about the mother-daughter piece? How was it showing up in your life?
Oh my gosh. So, my mother and I, we clashed when I was a teenager. It started probably when I was in it started when I was in junior high in the 7th grade. And we just battled. It seemed like every day. And I would, come out wounded on the other end because my mother's very crafty with her words. Oh. And so how it showed up as I continued to grow and move out of her environment was I always felt like I wasn't good enough. I always felt like I just couldn't do anything right. I always felt like everything, even though I was good at everything I touched, relationships, work, I just never felt I was good enough. I was on the quest for perfection and trying to be perfect because if I could be perfect, then my mom could see that I was okay and I was worthy to be loved a certain way. And so I think for me specifically, it was striving for that perfection piece. But what I saw and what was actually happening is I was getting the opposite effect. Even though I was striving for perfection, I was coming up short. Even though I was doing what I deemed the right things, nothing ever felt authentic. Because I was checking the boxes that I wanted my mother to accept me in versus, finding out who I am and being empowered by who I am, despite what she said. And, so it was interesting how it all came about. It was just, me faltering and, we did not repair our relationship until I was in my late 30s. So think about it. from the age of 14, 15, all the way to the mid 30s. And there was a period of time where she and I didn't even speak, literally not a word, for 3 years. And it bothered me because I knew in my soul that that was not the right thing to do, because one, again, it goes against the biblical principle, honor your mother and your father. And I was doing everything but, honoring and, pushing back and in today's society, canceling her. And it just didn't sit well with me. So it put me on a journey to figure out how could I, and again, I got to share this because this is really good. So in my 30s, I decided I was going to confront the bear. I was going to go in because I worked on myself. I feel strong. I can use my words now. I don't get intimidated. And I'm going to confront her and let her know how she messed me up. And that did not go well at all. I came back even more battered and tattered than I had before I ever went into that. Again, when you don't go in with the right tools, you can't repair something that's broken. So I learned to try again, a different approach many years later, and go back and not look at what she had done, but what did I want from the relationship? What could I make this relationship be for me? And my mother didn't have to change who she was, how she talked to me, how she made me feel, because I was in control of how I engaged that relationship. And that's where this came from.
Ooh, I love that. So when you're working with your clients, then the daughters, I'm assuming, is who you're working with most of the time.
Yeah.
What is it that is getting them to realize, oh, this is how my relationship with my mother is showing up in the world? What are the common, I guess, outcomes that are coming from those complex, I believe is the word we landed on in the pre-interview, in those complex relationships? How are those showing up for the daughters that are working with you?
Yeah, it's this nagging thing, like they're trying to do the best that they can, right? They're trying to become powerful women with a powerful voice, and something just inadvertently smacks them down unknowingly, and they get this, this fear or this whisper in their ear: "You can't do that. Who told you could do that? No, you're not good enough for that. You can never have it all because, you've got this, that, and that, the other wrong with you." And it's those whispers in the back of your mind that keep you literally like you're on a path, you're doing good, you're feeling momentum, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, this still small voice inside of you says, "Nope, you'll never be what you think you're going to be." And so those are the common things when in the people that I've dealt with. And so we sit and work together to go back and look at those stories that they formulated and talk about those small voices that are the voices of negative self-talk, and find out what is the root of them. Where are they coming from? Who told you that? When you were little, when you were 8, 9, 10, what was said to you? Because those things that are said to you, they're still there. So you can recall them like they were yesterday. And so it's easy to go back and look back and say, what was the one or two things that really had an impact on you that made you feel this way about yourself? So that instead of playing full out in life, you play full out to a point. And then you get afraid to take that last step that empowers you to knock that wall down. And then that's what I was doing, is I was coming up against a wall. Like I would see I was a track runner. So I would see that finish line, but in life, I didn't think I could cross that finish line with success. So I would stop because I didn't want the disappointment, because it wasn't still going to be good enough. No matter what I did that I excelled at, to my mother, from my perspective, it was never good enough. Ooh. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Because, and I think what really resonated with me, because I literally felt it in my gut, and I'm guessing it probably resonated with some of with one or more of the listeners, because I'm so connected now energetically. I can feel when they have an aha moment like I did, which is the playing full out to a point. Oh, like that right there. I don't know who else felt that little bit of a gut punch or the ice pick to the stomach, but I felt it, y'all. because it was, oh yeah, I play full out, apparently to a point. You know?
Yeah. I was also a basketball player, so I did play full out. And so I know what it feels like to play full out and leave everything that you have on the court. So when I started to look at the parallels of my life, I literally benched myself in my life and sat on the bench of life. And because I didn't, in fact, it impacted me even going to college, right out of high school, because there was this, you're not going to make it. You're going to fail. You're going to drop out. So I just dropped out. I went 1 year and then I dropped out. No good reason. Well, with a basketball scholarship waiting for me. So think about that. And that's the power of what I'm trying to break in women and help them see, that, especially young women, is those voices don't go away. Even when we work our hardest to try and, overcome them, at some point, something's going to happen in your life that lets you stop crossing that finish line because of what happened in that relationship. So I'm trying to break down those barriers with people and empower them to kick those barriers down, because they're no longer, they never were serving you. So why are we still holding on to them?
Right. Oh, that is so good. And I'm so glad you're doing the work you are in the world, because there's very obviously a call and a need for it. Right. So when you're working with people, and you've already referenced it once, bringing in the biblical perspective, what are some of the other parts that you pull from the Bible in order to help people understand what you're trying to work with them on, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So the other pieces that I work on, what was Jesus about? Jesus was about love and compassion and empathy. So those are the three main things that we dig into, because it's about showing empathy, compassion, toward your mother, despite where the relationship was, but also being intentional about where you want that relationship to go forward. Because if you're still looking behind you, I like to say, if you're still looking in the rearview mirror, you don't see what's in front of you, right? You don't see the possibilities and the hope that you could make this relationship a little different. And so, but if you break down the barriers and start looking at your mother from a place of empathy and love, and that's where the biblical piece comes in, is because God wants us looking at things with fresh set of eyes, not old lenses, covered in old, I like to say, covered under a mask, like you're looking through a Halloween mask with very narrow view. He wants your vision expanded so that you can see the possibilities and what could be versus what was.
Ooh, I like that. Because, to expand that analogy you gave, I can't remember who said the quote, but it was something along the lines of, there's a reason why the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror, right? The point is to take a glance at it, just to get an idea of where you came from and what's behind you. But really, what your focus should be when you're driving your life, when you're driving your relationship with your mother, when you're driving your business, the windshield is where you should be spending most of your focus.
Yes, exactly. Because it's a bigger perspective, right? You open yourself up to many lanes. Think about driving on a 3-lane highway versus a one-lane road, right? On a 1-lane road, you only have one lane and you have the opposing traffic. But when you're on a highway with many lanes, you have choices. You can drive in the fast lane, you can drive in the slow lane, you can drive in the middle lanes. And so that's what life is all about. It's being able to make the choice of which lane you want to be in. And when it comes to your relationship with your mother, how do you want this relationship to be? Because what people don't realize, and what I didn't realize when I was first trying to fix this relationship with my mother, is how it was impacting my son, who was little at the time. And I tried to do the complete opposite and be the mother that I wanted to him, but he still got the residual effects of my mother's and my relationship and the challenges that were there, because he was in my vicinity and he was in her vicinity. And so what you got to realize in relationships with boyfriends, this came up. I was married, and that came up in my marriage. And so it doesn't just really stick to you and your mom. It impacts everything. It impacted my work life. It impacted my coworkers. It impacted everybody who came in contact with me because there were some unresolved issues and things that I needed to deal with. And I went to therapy and got help for a lot of that. But when it came back to how do I want to rebuild this relationship with my mother? What does I want that to look like? And who is it going to also benefit when I do this? And I had to look at my son who loves my mother. And he had a completely different experience than I had, and gratefully so. And he and I have a different relationship than my mother and I had. So it does have a positive and a benefit when you go back and you restore a mother-daughter relationship to a place where that can be loving and healthy.
Oh, and I love the fact that, it's one of those things, because I would assume that maybe some people think that this would just impact their relationship with their daughter. And it's like, well, I don't have a daughter. All I have is a son. So I don't have to fix this. And it's like, no.
Yep. Well, so I only have a son, but my son had a daughter. My son does have a granddaughter. So I look at her relationship with her mother, and she's 11, and they are already having issues, just like I had when I was her age with my mother. So I'm able to help her understand the dynamics of what's going on and give her tools to go and stand up for herself in a respectful way now, so that she doesn't have to carry those, swallow that and carry it with her into adulthood. So it's kind of cool. I'm in this cool place right now, but it does. But what it also did was my son, because he got a better version of me, even though I felt like I was still stuck and broken and all those things as I was trying to figure this out, where he's now built this just fantastic relationship with his daughter that I look at and I just swoon over, because I wish I had had the tools that I have now when I was raising him. But he's a great young man. And it's like, he, when I talk to him about it, he didn't see the brokenness. All he saw was the love that I poured out to him. And he's taken that and elevated it for his daughter. So it does have benefits. And that's why it's so important to me, is a lot of people don't want to go down that road. And I get it. Yeah. Trust me. I went down it twice. One time I was bruised and battered and needed to go to the hospital to be rebuilt. And the second time I was successful. And so I'm trying to teach people how to be successful in repairing and restoring that relationship. And like you mentioned, when I had the advanced reader group for the book, I picked men and women, believers and non-believers, because I wanted to see how it translated from different readers' eyes. And the guys were overwhelmingly loved it themselves as much as the women did. And they said in one case, in fact, he read it twice, and then he went and pulled his daughter in, because he was a dad of a girl. He was a girl dad. Yeah. And he pulled her into the relationship, and they started reading the book together so that they could get stronger and rebuild their relationship and get over some things that happened in their past. So even though my heart is for the daughters who've had complex relationship with their mothers, this book was written universally for everybody, just to heal a relationship. Yeah.
Well, and I think that is quite, because relationship is relationship, right? People are people. The label of mother, father, parent, child, daughter, son, yes, it can have an impact, but I think at the same time, relationships are relationships, right? It's a tool that will work between two women is also likely going to be a tool that will be a benefit between a mother and a son, or a father and a daughter, right? Like that makes perfect sense. And two, because, you're also working with people who are in business, and I don't know about anybody else listening, but I know that how I feel about my business it is my third child. It is my, you know what I mean? Because I've got two biological children that I have physically birthed from my human body into the physical world. And I've birthed my business, right? It is also one of my things that I'm nurturing and building and growing. And so I think I can see how working on that relationship with a parent could also greatly benefit somebody's business. Yes?
Yes, yes. I'm glad you said that because I was like, how are we going to work that in? When I talked to you and we met, right, you gave me a new lane to look at, quite honestly, because I'm focused on, the mothers and daughters. And, this is spawning into many lanes on the freeway, as I alluded to earlier. And I said, well, how would this impact, an entrepreneur, a woman in that's trying to run her business. So I was digging into research and it was so fascinating. It was, especially, and it rings true whether or not they have employees, whether they're dealing with vendors that, they need to rely on. They may be, they can have conflicts in those relationships. So again, another relationship, right? They can be, challenged in making decisions because they're insecure about, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to, and they're trying to grow their business, but they're hesitant in making those decisions. So how does that impact their business? Well, sometimes you get stuck and you don't make a decision, which really impacts your business, right? And there's just so many avenues that, when I started looking at how does this really impact business, I was like, Jenny, you are a godsend because now I have another lane to talk about. And it's fascinating. So yeah, it just because, and I think we've been programmed and conditioned to put things in boxes. My mother, your relationship with the mother, that's a box. That's a box you can put on the shelf and you deal with it when you deal with it. If the phone rings, I'll deal with it when I deal with it. But the reality of life is that box is always open and it's always impacting you somewhere. You're not aware or you're blind to the fact that that's where it's coming from. And you need to work on it to improve in all areas of your life. That's why I say, although this work that I'm talking about is for mothers and daughters, it's really life work because when you can fix a core relationship like a mother-daughter relationship, the rest of your life just expands. It just does.
Right. Well, and like I said, the connection there became obvious to me because I've talked about my business being another one of my children, and it's something that I focus on as much as I do, with raising my physical children, my human children, right? Because obviously my business is how I provide for them. What I do with my business helps take care of my kids, right? So my third kid helps my first two, right? So
Right.
with all of that, what are some of the positive benefits you're seeing for your clients who have worked with you that when they rebuild a relationship with a complex relationship with their mother, how has that positively impacted their business? What are some of the unintended but cool results that have come out of that?
Yeah, some of the unintended but cool results is they view partnerships with people differently. Like, instead of it being, a transaction, right? And, I'm going to give you a service and then I'm going to be paid for that service. They look at it as a collaborative effort that really can benefit them and other people in the long run, and they become more generous with that relationship and that exchange of that relationship. That's one thing that I've seen which is truly amazing because they were so focused, and what it comes down to is they were protecting themselves just like when they were little or younger from getting hurt, and when we do the work, then they open themselves up for all the possibilities. What could this look like if I scaled my business 2 times, 3 times, 10 times? And they feel empowered, like if I make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. There's lessons in there that I'm going to learn from, and I can turn it and make shifts and adjustments to my business that will continue to push it forward versus stopping it in the tracks because they made a mistake. That's tied to when I used to make a mistake with my mother, there was no forgiveness. There was no this, there was no that. And so that's the difference. That's the beauty of what I get to see every day.
Oh, I love that. And so now for somebody who's listening who maybe they have one of those complex relationships with their mother or a parent, but specifically the daughters and the mothers who may be listening right now, you have a gift for them to help them with that. Tell us about the gift that you have.
It's a little guide. It's got 5 steps, strategies, I like to call them, to help them thrive in conflict. I couldn't think of a better word, right? Because in their mind, their relationship with their mother has always been in conflict. And in this guide, it just teaches them some things to look out for, like 5 things to look out for, and then how to take a different look at those and use them to empower you, not only your relationship with your mom, but also your business and how it will impact your business. It's pretty cool. I'm super excited to give it to your fans who love your show.
I love this. This is great because I can tell just by the people who had their reactions to different parts of our conversation that there's going to be some people who are going to want access to this. So for the badass crew who are listening right now, and you're sitting here going, I would like to learn these strategies for how to navigate the conflicts with my mother. We do have the link in the show notes. And of course, my badass crew already knows how to get to the show notes to grab that link and click on it. But for somebody, in case it's their first time ever listening to the show, all you have to do is grab your phone, as long as you're not driving, click on today's episode, scroll under Chequita's picture, and you will see the link there for the 5 strategies for women entrepreneurs to navigate mother-daughter conflicts and scale their business. So they'll be able to grab that, read that, implement those strategies, because this is something I've been trying to hammer home with my audience is don't just like go read this and be like, well, that was great information. Like you have to do something with it, people. Information plus implementation equals growth. So just keep that in mind, everybody. So Chequita, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this. And I really am looking forward to hearing from the audience and what their experience is in going through your gift with the guide with helping their business grow. This is awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Jen, for having me. You was Maggie before I was like, yes, we're going to have fun on this podcast. And, they can always visit me at my website, www.chequitamccullough.com. And on there, there's a link to the new book that they can go and buy on Amazon, Calling All Daughters, a biblical blueprint to restore your mother-daughter relationship. And with that comes a beautiful companion guide that will help them journal and walk through the healing process of that relationship.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So guys, remember that book, Calling All Daughters, because by the time this episode comes out, the book might already be out, y'all. So if I have the link, we'll make sure that we get that into the show notes as well. So that way, if you guys are feel so called to go grab that book, please go grab it. Because obviously, if you're listening to this episode, there's a reason. The universe, God, source, whatever you may call it, said you need to hear this today. That's why you were meant to hear this. So Chequita, thank you again for being here. This has been fantastic. I so appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me. I've had a blast.
Fantastic. That is awesome to hear, because that's why we do this. I really want people to be able to, through the podcast, find the information that they need in order to learn and grow and really advance their businesses, because that's why they're listening specifically to a business podcast. So this has been awesome. So, and of course, badass crew, don't forget, go check the show notes, grab the guide, grab the link to the book if you so want to work on your relationship with your mother. And badass crew, stay tuned, because you know how this goes. The next badass episode is on its way.
Thanks for listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jenny Bellinger. Why are you waiting to go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com? Don't make the dom get her whip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with another rock star that you know in direct sales after you subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. You can also check out the show notes for links and any contact information mentioned in today's episode. We'll see you next time.